Kyle, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you too. No echo, no nothing?
All right, all right.
All right, all right. Okay. So my mic is actually, our mics are actually hot right now. So, I mean, feel free to say what.
Stop swearing immediately.
And then, you know, I'm going to go over through just some quick news around for 10 minutes or so. I mean, you could interact in the chat. But after that, this is when I introduce you. My favorite part.
Cool.
All right.
All right, all right.
For anyone watching the replay, go ahead and skip the countdown. For anyone watching the replay, go ahead and skip the countdown. For those on Facebook or Twitter, please hop on to YouTube to chat live with us. You almost forgot about Dre. What's up with
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how funny is the SEO joke today?
Oh, I really need to update. I mean, I only had a few where I was able to get Ted DiBiase to say a few things. Do you know who he is? Did you watch wrestling back in the days?
Nah, I wasn't a huge fan. No.
Okay, yeah, he was a WWE star, the $1 Million Man. And I mean, like, you know, how the Hoth always had like wrestlers like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. It's like, I was like, oh, a lot of people in our generation actually watch wrestling. So I thought it was pretty funny to get a wrestler to say some SEO jokes.
Sadly, they're all just dad jokes, SEO jokes.
Yeah. I need to find.
There aren't any like complex layered SEO jokes.
I think next time I want to try and see if I can get like the actual guest to probably read out a joke and I play it right in the beginning.
That would be funny.
Yeah,
that'd
right?
Be funny.
Instead of, yeah, that's what I think I'm probably going to do. Oh, Brian said you weren't old enough yet when wrestling came out.
I think I might be older than Brian. I've met Brian. I condition and I moisturize this beautiful face. That's why I look so young.
Brian says, Oriole of Valet is my secret.
Okay, Brian's got me by a couple years. I'm happy to admit that he said his age. Dre, are you on Pacific time? Is that where you're located?
Yeah, it's about 5 p.m. here.
Cool. Thank you for accommodating my time zone.
Oh, no, no. Yeah, I mean, it would have been like, what, 2 a.m. or something like that? If it was my regular time?
Yeah, that's rough. Maybe swing midnight and I could be functional and fun, but 2 a.m. is probably not. That's not fun, Kyle, anymore.
And those who are joining this evening, thank you for joining and spending your Friday nights with Dre and Kyle. All right, showtime in 50 seconds.
Hey, time to get it started, no delay, let's work. Wanna see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre De Vera, steady dropping knowledge, over 15 years in the game, so he knows all about it. Master the art of SEO, you will be amazed. Time to get your brand off page to on page. Dropping knowledge, legendary for sure. Whether you're just getting started or self-employed entrepreneur. Yeah, let's go. Subscribe to the SEO video show.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the SEO video show where SEO is alive and fun. My name is Paul Andre De Vera, aka Dre, and I curate SEO videos released within the past week into about 1-minute clips. And my favorite part of my show is when I get to introduce my guest. And my guest today is the infamous Kyyyyyle Rooooooooof, the SEO professional who ranked keywords at a contest using Lorem Ipsum. He literally changed Google's policies with this rankings. Before I get started, I want to say hi to everyone in chats. Carol, Delilah, Elizabeth, Andrew, Mikes, Brian. What's up, everyone? Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, actually, hey, for everyone out there watching the replay, what's up to you? Please come by next week live every Friday. I go live 12 p.m. Today's a special date time because my guest is actually out of the country, not from the United States. But please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And let's get on with the show.
This is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. What do SEOs use when they go fishing? Link bait.
Removing content from Google is a common question I find in Quora. Google Webmaster shows us how this week.
If you want to remove content that you control from Google search, we recommend one of three things. Return a 404 or 410 HTTP response whenever the content is requested. Protect your content with a password so that it cannot be accessed by Googlebot or others on the web. Or use a no-index meta tag to indicate that the page should not be indexed. Simply redirecting an old page with a 301 response or using a robots text directive might not be enough to remove the old content from Google search results. If your intention is just to hide a page until you fix it, you should use Search Console to do so. A temporary removal request is a way to quickly remove content on your site from Google search results. A successful request lasts only about 6 months, which should be enough for you to find a solution to either allow the content to be seen or to remove it permanently. In other words, such a request will only hide the pages from search results.
And this is very true because, I mean, one time I was actually trying to remove some pages and I forgot to do all the no index, no follow, or actually do no follow within the robots.txt file. And the page popped up. So be sure to actually remove the page, let it 404 like you said. In the search off the record, podcast, they discuss the dupe detection and how Google calculates this. It's very interesting. Let's listen in.
So we are reducing the content into a checksum. And we do that because we don't want to scan the whole text, because it just doesn't make sense, essentially. It takes more resources and the result would be pretty much the same. So we calculate multiple kinds of checksums about the textual content of the page, and then we compare the checksums. It can also catch near duplicates. We have several algorithms that, for example, try to detect and then remove the boilerplate from the pages. So for example, we exclude the navigation from the checksum calculation. We remove the footer as well. And then you are left with what we call the centerpiece, which is the central content of the page.
Kind of like the meat of the page. That's where it's at.
When we calculated the checksums and we compared the checksums to each other, then those that are fairly similar, or at least a little bit similar, we will put them together in a dupe cluster.
So from a practical point of view, it's basically you take all of the letters in the document and you add them all together and you come up with this really long number. And then you just compare the numbers instead of comparing the text. So it's kind of a simple way to have like a fingerprint for the whole document.
Yeah.
And you just compare the numbers. You don't have to look at the text anymore.
This is very interesting. So they're not even looking at words. So I'm just kind of think outside the box here on how you can get past this dedupe algorithm and how they find these detections. This actually brings me to something similar to what Ted brought up at SEO Fight Club. Let's listen in here.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
That there are certain zones of the web page that are being barred from indexing. If you put keywords in those banned areas of a page, those keywords will not expand your keyword reach. Those keywords will not be findable in Google search. So there are parts of the page that appear to be off limits for indexing. And that's a new concept. So now, in addition to those other 5 types of updates, we have zoning updates. There are zones of a page that can be made, off limits or allowed, and Google can change those definitions. So now we need to monitor if Google is changing the allowed zones of a page. And that's the new type of update.
Be sure to check out the whole episode where Ted goes over the whole different types of updates that Google goes through, and particularly this zoning update. Discoveries like this, heard first on the SEO Fight Club, is why I watch it like every week. You can't get firsthand knowledge and evidence like that anywhere else. My next piece of news is by Yoast. They talk about the new Microsoft Bing Site Explorer and why it's an important tool. Let's check it out.
And it's actually really useful. If I've got a site that's well structured where everything's in folders, now I can go and see how does Bing see my site? Where are there bits I didn't realize were a bit tangled? How are those bits performing? Where are there errors? It's really nice. It's the same kind of thing you might get in a SEO tool like a Screaming Frog or a Sitebulb or any of those crawlers, but in Bing, so you're getting, almost said in Google, in Bing, so you're getting it directly from them, which means you're not having to have some third party interpret it, which is really useful.
Yeah, so this is, in many ways, looking at this is very important to do every once in a while, because there's not very often that you get the chance to look at how a crawler perceives your site this way. And if there's one thing that the Bing crawler does pretty well is emulate Google in how it crawls. I mean, they basically do work in the same way. So I think this is a very cool new thing, and it's nice.
I'm curious, how many of you are actually using Bing Webmaster Tools? Please let me know in the chat or in the comments below. And I'm curious, like, what part of it you're using. I mean, I have it, but I'll be honest, I haven't gotten in there. But have you ever wondered what links to target in the Google Disavow file? Let's watch Cyrus from Moz give us some few tips.
So good candidates to disavow. The best examples are often what Google will give you when they penalize you. Again, it's a little more rare, but when you do get a link penalty, Google will often provide sample links. And they don't tell you all of the links to Disavow, but they'll give you sample links, and you can go through and you can look for patterns in your links to see what matches, what Google is considering a spammy link. And you definitely want to include those in your Disavow file. If you've suffered a drop in traffic, or you think Google is hurting you algorithmically because of your links, obviously, if you participated in link schemes, if you've been a little bit naughty, violated Google's webmaster guidelines, you definitely want to take a look at those. Non-editorial links, but these are links that the webmaster didn't intentionally place, where things like widgets, forum spam, signature spam, really shady, dodgy links that you control. And a good judge of all of these links is often in the anchor text. Is it a money anchor text? Are these money high-value keywords? Do you control the anchor text? You can generally tell a really shady link by looking at the anchor text. Is it optimized? Could I potentially benefit? Do I control that? And if the answer is yes to those questions, it's usually a good candidate for the Disavow file.
I personally use a tool called SEMrush. They have some tool where you can look at the toxicity of your links, and you can kind of scan through those as your first pass, but definitely check out each link before you remove it and disavow it. My next piece of news is from WhoRank, who answers a great question for all you e-commerce SEOs on what product pages to remove, whether or not they're out of stock or not. Let's check it out.
So publishing too many, products and out of stock items will and can hurt your SEO rankings. So that's the short answer. But consider some extra information around that. If you remove pages or stock, products that had high traffic levels, that'll hurt you even more. If you remove pages that have incoming links, that'll hurt you more. So it's really about best practice to make it clear that a sold out item is currently out of stock. But you need to make sure that your website says when it's due to come back in. So you only have to go to a large electrical online retailer, and in Australia I'm thinking Harvey Norman, and you type in TV or something, and you'll see that there's a certain TV you want, but it's out of stock. But it will actually say stock is arriving the week before Christmas or something like that. So Google will look for that. So the other thing you could do is, if you have items that are permanently out of stock, you could set up a redirect to like their replacement item. So if we're talking phones and you no longer sell the version 10, but now you're selling the version 11, so version 10 is out of stock permanently, having it redirect to the recent version is another way of doing it. But look, too long didn't read. Best to have 30,000 available products on your website than 60,000 where half are never going to be available again, or you don't know. So yeah, good question.
Pay attention to that. Make sure you don't just remove pages just because they're out of stock. I mean, those may be some high value pages. So just be sure to check those out. For all you content marketers out there, sometimes you have trouble finding things to write about. I mean, Ross Simmons had an awesome presentation at MozCon, finding topics to write about. And let's check out his strategy, how he does it.
So I love talking about communities because this is something that I think oftentimes is ignored, but it is where you can get some of the most authentic feedback from your customers, where you can get some amazing insights around what type of content they want, and very easily you can get access to the content that always rises to the top. And you can uncover trends here. Let's say you're trying to speak to a very technical audience. You're targeting CTOs, you're targeting engineers, people who are working in the tech space, who are developers. You go to a community like Hacker News, right? You sort that content by the top posts. You know that your audience is there because that's a user channel fit in its essence. The developers, the technical people that you're trying to connect with are using this channel. So you sort the content by the top posts, right? This is like reverse engineering the content that you know they want. The content that is generating engagement rises to the top. So you start to look for trends, you start to look for insights. What is it that I'm seeing they want over and over again, and how can I recreate this as an asset that I can then submit back to Hacker News, right? That's the process. Research, rethink, remix.
awesome tip there. That's something I'm going to plan on doing, especially in certain niches. You can find these communities and find like these ranking type posts and develop topics off of that. My next piece of news is from Andy from High Voltage SEO. He actually goes over the icing on the cake of how they rank their clients' websites. Let's check it out.
This was the SEO icing on the Google cake. What do I mean by this? Well, a content silo is a collection of pages around a topic. It can be done in different ways, but ours looks like this. It's actually called the reverse silo. You choose related topics to your target page and you write about them. So let's say the target page is selling personalized pens. The supporting pages could be about 10 popular uses for personalized pens, the story of how one personalized pen landed $1 million deal, 5 high-end personalized pens designed to impress, etc. These pages then link in a daisy chain fashion from one to the other and then all back to the target page. Content silos are created for a few reasons. One, because Google loves them. When Google crawls the site, it finds the topics within your website neatly clustered together and pointing to the parent page or the target page to show Google the page in the silo that we want it to rank. Ideally, you build one of these silos for each of the high priority target pages on your site. So in our client's case, this could be a silo for personalized pens, engraved pens, branded notepads, etc.
This brings me to my special guest today, who is also the co-founder of High Voltage SEO. I mean, we can talk more about silos. I mean, the first time I've heard about silos was from his course. He actually does have a course. It's an awesome course. I highly recommend it. We can talk a little bit more about it, but let me go ahead and introduce him.
Kyle is the co-founder and lead SEO at High Voltage SEO. He's the creator of Page Optimizer Pro, an on-page optimization tool trusted by over 1,500 SEOs. He is the co-founder of Internet Marketing Gold, IMG, the online community for SEO science. He is one of the co-hosts of the SEO Fight Club, a weekly SEO dedicated to open debate and peer review of cutting-edge SEO research and theory crafting. In the past 4 years, he's conducted over 350 scientific tests on Google algorithms. He also provides instructional SEO marketing courses ranging from beginner to advanced. He loves sharing SEO ideas that are controversial. Please welcome the godfather of the SEO video show, a lawyer turned SEO mad scientist, Kyyyyyle Rooooooooof.
Kyle, my man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Kyle, I mean, I swear, I called you the godfather of the SEO video show because I think a lot of people don't know this. The SEO video show was born and baptized, I guess, by you and Anita at our mastermind at IMG. It's pretty crazy how where it's gone from there. It was conceptualized there, and now we're here, and I'm interviewing now.
That's fantastic. I remember the day. I remember the day.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be my first guest, but we had to reschedule and do all that stuff. But hey, you're here now, right? And I stuck with it.
I wanted to be the first guest. Excuse me. I really wanted to be the first guest, but the pandemic got in the way.
Yeah, and then because you were moving around at the time. I mean, again, that's so cool how it's come full circle and where I'm talking to you now, and how it all started. And I wanted to kind of take it back a little bit. So let's see here. I mean, what's the story behind you becoming an SEO from being a lawyer? I mean, I would think being a lawyer is something that you would have been it's a pretty well-paying job. But what fascinated you about SEO to go away from being a lawyer?
Well, I was a trial attorney and I got a bit burnt out, and I decided to take a year off where I could just maybe travel a bit, and found a job teaching English in Korea. And that sounded like a great idea, where I could just take a year and do nothing. And that year turned into 5 years in Korea. And while there, I started building websites. Coming from like law, working 1 billion hours a week to like a 9 to 4 kind of job, I had what felt just like infinite free time, and was able to start getting into the web game and building websites. And then from there, I heard about this thing called SEO, where you can get monthly recurring income from people. Like, well, that sounds like a great idea, and kind of gravitated towards that. Found myself in a situation where I kind of had to do SEO. A story that you know, but basically, the business had collapsed due to things completely outside of our control, and I had to. We had just signed several SEO clients, and in order for me to pay the rent next month, I had to learn SEO that day. The SEO team was gone, the web building team was gone, and that was down to me. And I had to learn SEO basically that day, and that's what I did. And kind of some zigs and zags from there, but then the agency came out of that, High Voltage SEO, and that was about 7 years ago when High Voltage started. So now we're here today.
Yeah, I mean, I want to take it back even further, go a little bit deeper. I mean, I know you were talking about you actually had a web design agency, and this was like a business with like your brother, or was it your brother that you started?
That's
this
right.
With?
So yeah, so he does web design and development, and we had a team of excellent developers in India, and then I got the bright idea. I was like, why don't we just go to India and open up a company there, and then we can actually bring them into one room, and we can kind of start. So instead of having like freelancers who are working a little bit for us and a little bit for other people, we can have dedicated people all in one room, and we'll be able just to crank out the sites. And then at the same time, we hired an SEO team. So we had a couple guys to come in to do the SEO for the sites, because I was like, hey, they like us because we built the site. Now let's get the recurring income from them. So that's what we did. And then we rented a mixed-use building. So the idea was the first floor was where the office was for the company, and then the second floor were apartments. And so my brother's up there, and we get a knock on the door, and it's the police. And we were told that we'd get a shakedown, because that's just kind of how it goes. And the police, I was not there at the time, my brother was, and they said, we need to see your papers. And he's like, no problem. So he shows the papers, and they're like, these are the wrong papers. And my brother's like, okay, all right, how much do you want? And instead of like asking for a bribe, they put him in handcuffs and threw him in jail.
Oh, man.
Which was a little surprising. So he's talking to the chief of police, and the chief of police goes, these could be the right papers, I don't know. He's like, you have two choices. You can leave town tomorrow, or you can sit in jail and wait for the magistrate to come, and the magistrate will sort it out. My brother goes, well, when does the magistrate come? And the chief of police was like, I don't know. I was like, I guess I'm leaving town tomorrow.
Oh man.
So he races back to the office, grabs what he can. We get him out of the country. We became friends with our neighbor, who they were doing the same thing, where they had a business on the first floor and the apartments were on the second floor. And they tell us that as soon as my brother leaves, the police come in and just take all of our stuff, the computers, the furniture, all the stuff. They just grab it and take it away. And then the landlord had a new tenant in like 2 days later. And we had just paid the month's rent, and because this was a mixed-use space, we had to put a 6-month deposit down. So basically, the landlord got 7 months worth of rent. We kitted out the local police department with new furniture, and probably the IT department got a boost. And then we were in a tough spot. So my brother, because he does web design and development, and I mean our employees fled. I mean, they don't need to be involved in any of that. He's like, I can take these 4 clients, and that left me with the SEO, because I'm not a developer and I can't code. And so at that point I was like, for me to pay my own rent next month, I need to learn SEO today. That's exactly what I did.
How'd you learn it? I mean, what was your ways? Were you just like going to forums? Were you just like, knew someone back then that was doing it? How'd you get into SEO, like learning it?
Yeah, that's exactly how you have to, right? Is this a ranking factor? And then you see the answers. But then that leads into like what I got into eventually, was that when you do that, when you look for those answers, you'll see 3 people will say yes, 3 will say no, and 3 will say maybe on anything in SEO. And I was like, well, that's fairly worthless. It's not going to help you anywhere. And then what I realized, I was like, oh, I just need to run my own test sites. If I run my own tests on Google and I can see how it works, then I'll know. And I kind of assumed that's what everybody was doing, that everybody had their own test sites, and that's why they weren't just sharing this information. They're like, they'll just kind of throw this information up, but really the people that are doing it are running their own test sites. After getting into it, I realized most people aren't. most people are not running series of tests, and they don't have their own test sites. They don't have live sites where they can see how the algorithm will respond to this or that, which has then kind of led me into where I am now with the teaching that I do, the instruction and stuff like that is all based off of this is how you can figure it out, and then this is how you can apply it, and this is how you can take kind of foundational principles and build strategies around that will be evergreen and continue to be successful. And so that's kind of the path that I took into all that.
Well, I mean, I guess like 5 years ago, I want to turn it back to like 5 years ago, and this is where I changed my my whole SEO outlook on SEO is like what you're talking about. Like you thought other people were doing this. I watched this video.
What is science? Science is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and the behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. What I'm really happy to tell you guys today is that you're all scientists. That's, when people ask you what you do, you are a scientist, yeah. People ask you what you do, you might say search and observation. You guys tell them, no, I'm a scientist. I just leave it at that because this is actually what we do all day. When we're trying to figure things out about SEO, we're making observations and we're testing it and we're figuring it out. We are scientists. And it's an empowering idea because you think like SEO's in this little weird corner, and we're doing kind of things that people don't understand, but you're actually a scientist.
That video right there was what actually changed my whole outlook. I mean, it was something I even like you were using, like the test you provided there was something I actually emulated myself. We used to give out a free template. It was like this WordPress template, and it was like, it stripped all the code out so you wouldn't get things out. I actually would download it from High Voltage SEO.co. And I mean, is that something you're still using, or is that are you using testing now with different templates? And are you how are you testing nowadays?
Well, there's a lot that's very similar to that, to those initial tests for sure. I do like to control small environments. There are ways to do it larger now. As you know, Ted Kyyyyyle has a testing tool that allows you to automate a lot of things, so you can crank out larger pages and you can do things in aggregate. But by and large, I still like to stay with the smaller tests. I like to keep a small environment where I'm controlling as much as I possibly can, so I can see those little bits of movement. So that video, that was the first time I ever spoke on SEO.
Oh, really?
That was my very first talk. And that's actually when I knew that I had something, because at that talk, in that room, that's very high-level SEOs in that room. And a lot of what I would talk about that day were fairly new concepts to them. And I didn't realize that going into it, how original a lot of those thoughts were going to be for the people in that room. That I just assumed everybody was doing the stuff that I was doing. In SEO, it's easy to get into your own little space, and you just assume that everybody's thinking the same thing. We're all in the same spot. You think you're just in this isolated thing, but then when you can share ideas, and then you realize like, oh, a lot of people aren't thinking this way, or they're not doing these kind of things. It was a real eye opener for me, and that's actually then what kind of propelled me into more speaking, more teaching, stuff like that. That was a good day for me.
No, I mean, that was awesome, because I mean, you're a great presenter, and I'm curious, like, and how you present to a broad audience. I mean, you go deep into philosophers, and what are your steps of crafting like a presentation like that? I mean, were you part of the Toastmasters? I mean, obviously you're a lawyer, so you knew how to speak, but I mean, were you part of some kind of group, or how did you develop your presentation skills? When it came to speaking.
Wow. That's something I work on a lot, actually. Like I drill a lot in speaking. Being a lawyer, it was especially a trial attorney was extremely helpful to me to be able to craft an argument, or to craft an explanation, or to kind of get from a here to a there. But I, by and large, cannot stand SEO conferences because they're wildly boring. Like, there's a lot that's just eye-poppingly boring about the material, and I realize like I can't do that. I can't. People can read, and so like when somebody puts on slides and they're just reading their slides, I'm like, you could have just shipped me your slides. Like, we could have really cut out the middleman here on this. I also think that a lot of prezos, which are good in content, are really more like a fancy blog post, or journal entry that you could read somewhere else again, and what I realize is that I think people go to conferences to have an experience. You know, they go to listen to someone so they can experience something beyond just what would be a glorified blog post. And so that's what I really try to do in my talks on stage, is to give an experience, to give you something to think about, that, I don't know, that it maybe challenges a little bit about what you're thinking or presents something in a new way. And then, of course, I will give the SEO nuggets, but I could stand up, I could give my SEO nuggets, and that's a 5-minute talk, and it'd be pretty boring. It would just be like, okay, these are the things that actually work. All right, I'm out. But I think people want more than that. And so when I get asked to speak in those types of places, I put a lot of effort into crafting something that will be memorable, that you can put into it. And when it comes to speaking, though, you have to go to things you like. And I personally am a big fan of historical philosophy, the history behind what's going on with what people are doing, or historical science. You know, like, how did this come to be? Like, how did this discovery happen? And with that, it's nonsense. Like, the stories are crazy of how discoveries are made, or how this person did that. And then when you go like way back, you know, stories are very apocryphal, like fanciful. You know, that it was these circumstances aligned, and this is how it happened. But it turns into great stories, and so you can use them as modern allegories to SEO, because you know, when you read history about like a scientific discovery, it seems like all of a sudden there's this magic that happened, you know, and they're at the cusp of something new, and that's really where we're at with Google, right? And search engines and a lot of technologies happen. It feels like all of a sudden there's this magic that's bubbling, and so it's the same type of feel when like a discovery is made back in 1600, you know, or the 1700s, when Newton is doing his thing with, you know, laws of motion and gravity and calculus, and that's just all brand new stuff. And where's that coming from? How did that even happen? That's what a lot of like what Google discoveries feel like, or things with the computers or other technology. It just kind of feels like, wow. Mm-hmm. So it's fun to take those types of moments in history, and then you can bring them into the modern setting that we're in, and they work very well, and they fit very well. So there are things that I like talking about them. They gave me the stage for 45 minutes, and you're stuck listening to me. So I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about, and that's what I'll put together.
No, but I mean, they're very well put together. I mean, they're very, you know, captivating. I mean, when you tell stories like that, it makes people remember certain things too, right? Like, even though you insert those nuggets, it makes you just remember those even more, because you can tie in a story with a certain nugget, which actually brings me to another thing that kind of, you know, brought you up in the SEO industry with, besides, you know, speaking, was this contest. And you know, like, this is what, you know, sometimes we'll refer to it like, you know, as the Lorem Ipsum, ranking Lorem Ipsum contest. I mean, tell the viewers that don't know about this contest of how you were able to change like Google's guidelines, because I mean, it's funny because after this contest, we did like a, you know, before and after, and saw like, oh wow, this made an effect. What was tell us.
Yeah, this will be with me for the rest of my life.
Oh yeah. It's an awesome thing.
It was 2 years ago. There was a contest in SEO Signals Lab, which is a great SEO group in Facebook. There's like 65,000 members now, and it was a competition that was anybody that's in the group could participate, and it was to rank for a term, rhinoplasty Plano. Rhinoplasty is a nose job. Plano is a city that's just outside of Dallas, and you had 30 days, and it had to be a brand new site. So this is just a straight sprint on this sort of thing. And then the idea is that the site at the end of that 30 days that ranks the highest for that term is the winner. And 27 pros entered the contest. Like, people, I think, felt pretty confident about where their SEO was at. At the end of the 30 days, I took 5th. So I was in the 5th spot, but nobody was really lighting the world on fire after 30 days. I think the winner, who is now a good friend of mine, he was on page 8, you know. So I think he was like ranking like 82nd. I was like at 93 or something like that.
Okay.
But 2 weeks later, the site shot to page 1. I was sitting in the number 7 spot, and then about 2 weeks after that, I went to number 1 organic, and I also went to number 1 in the maps. And then for a little bit, I actually wiped out the maps, and I was the knowledge panel for Rhinoplasty Plano, which was pretty funny.
Wow.
And people really started to lose their minds in the group, and the people that heard about that. And the reason is that I built the site entirely in Lorem Ipsum. So lorem ipsum is the fake Latin text that you use. Like if you are building a brand new site and you want to see what text will look like, lorem ipsum is that text that gets put in. And what I did is I did the math for what Google's algorithm wanted for rhinoplasty plano, and then I did the math on the exact keyword, its variations, its contextual terms, and then I copied and pasted those terms the right amount of times in different signal areas, in different places on the page that Google looks for the term. So it'd be like, blah, 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 nose job, blah, 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 plano, blah, 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 rhinoplasty, that kind of thing, in different areas on the page, like your title, within the content, that sort of thing. But the rest of it was lorem ipsum, launched the page. And the point I was trying to make with it is that Google can't read. Now, Google can't read as a human being can read. Google is so powerful and it's amazing, and you want to put human attributes onto it. You want to, because it is so amazing, you want to think of it as a human being, but Google has no ability to read like a human does. Google's algorithm is just that. It's an algorithm. It needs math, and if you can give the algorithm the math that it wants, then you can be very, very successful. So that's what I was trying to show, and I think I also very quickly, I think I was very successful in showing that's how it works. A few months later, Search Engine Journal decided to do an article on it, and it was still #1 in maps and #1 organic. And they did this article as though like they were doing some investigative journalism, and then they really got into it. And the guy that wrote the article, Roger Monti, didn't contact me for whatever reason. Didn't think he had to, I guess. And he decided to publish my name, and he also published the site in the article. 6 hours later, the site was de-indexed by Google, which I guess that's fair play. But that night, I got all these notices from Google from like 1:15 a.m. to 1:27 a.m. And Google de-indexed 20 of my test sites. And these test sites had nothing to do with the rhinoplasty site. They weren't linking in. They had nothing at all to do with it. They were on different hosts. They had different whois. They were all, those are just the sites that I used to figure out what's going on in the algorithm, and Google took those down, which was not fun at the time, but it's very funny now. Mm-hmm. And the other thing about it too, though, like after I took a second to think about it, I was like, this is perfect. Google has completely validated everything that I said, because if I had gotten lucky, or if I was talking nonsense, they would just roll their eyes and moved on. But I showed how the algorithm works, and then they went after me personally for it. But then a while later, it took a while to find this. People kept saying that what I did was black hat, and I was adamant that it wasn't. I didn't hide anything. I didn't use any backlinks. I didn't buy any backlinks. It was just the content on the page, and just the content on the page is not outside of Google's guidelines. Mm-hmm. Well, I recently did a course on white hat SEO, where defining what white hat is, and that course launches in a little bit, but obviously I needed to go back and reread the guidelines so I can discuss them. And all of a sudden there's this guide in there on automated generated content is the section that it's in. But the #1 rule is that you can't have content that makes little to no sense to the reader but contains keywords. And I was like, I don't remember that rule being in there. So I took the URL that the rules on, and I put it into the Wayback Machine. And in the Wayback Machine, you can see in there's two big bubbles, where the Wayback Machine is taking pictures because activities happen. And so it was like February of the year, and then 10 days after the competition in July. And in February, that rule doesn't exist. 10 days after the competition is over and my site is out there, that rule shows up. And then a couple months later, when the site gets exposed by Search Engine Journal, then they can now punish me by their brand new rule that they had just created based on all of this.
Man, so you dropped bombs on them. That was like something where, you totally had to change their, their guidelines, which I think is totally cool. I mean, it's just one of those things that you can say, hey, look what happened. Look what, it was something that you did. And I'm curious, because you said from this ranking, I'm sure everyone wants to know, like, what were those math things that you actually tweaked, and where would you add these, and how did you know what to add? I mean, I know Andy who actually talked about, like, you know, this interlinking where you're doing like the reverse silo type of thing. What were, you know, the kind of the inner things that you're doing with the site, besides, you know, counting?
Sure.
Yeah,
so we had a silo for the site. They were essentially blog posts that so the title was something related to Plano or rhinoplasty or nose jobs, and like how much does a nose job cost, kind of a thing. But then that whole article was Lorem Ipsum. So it was just the title. That whole article is Lorem Ipsum, and then we're just linking back into. So we had, I think, 7 silo posts like that. They all interlinked to each other, just like in Andy's diagram, and then they all link back up to the target page. So we created our reverse silo, but completely out of Lorem Ipsum again. So the title itself was something unique that was related to rhinoplasty Plano or Plano. So it was a relevant title, but then the rest of the content within that post was Lorem Ipsum. The whole site was Lorem Ipsum.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I thought it was yeah, just a page, but, you know, I was thinking, oh, he must have been, you know, doing some other stuff on the side for the silo thing, and the reverse silo. But wow, so it's just the meta titles. So you're saying, like, meta titles are really, really important.
Yeah, the meta title and the H1 on the page, which were identical,
okay,
were something related to the concept. You know, things that people would want to know, like, what's the recovery time for a nose job or for rhinoplasty? How much does it cost? Does it hurt? And these are questions, though, that you see in Google. So when you look up rhinoplasty in the people also ask area, you know, these are questions that people are also asking about it, and that's what you want to build out for real silos. You know, those are the things that you want, because they're longer tail, so they're lower search volume, they have more words in them, they're easy to win. They will probably rank faster than your target page, and you'll start trickling in good traffic. You know, if people are asking how much does it cost, that's probably somebody that's really interested in the service, and so you have a target page that might take its time to rank, but you might be able to win some clicks off of that. Now you've got some really good traffic. Does it hurt? What's the recovery time? Those types of things. Those are great pieces of content that you can create for your service or your product, get people in that are interested in those things. And the idea is, because you've built out that silo properly, they're either going to click for more information and stay within your silo, or they're going to click up to your target page and get exactly where you need them to be.
People always ask, so that's something where you should always look for, either creating like your silo pages, or even, because I heard you talk about using those as H2s, or am I totally missing it?
Yeah, they're good for both. Like, if there's something that's really on point to your target concept, whatever your main keyword is for the page, if it's really on point, and yeah, put that on the page, because you'll just get great content put together. But then there's some that are slightly farther afield. Like, it doesn't make quite as much sense to have it on the page, because it takes the narrative into another direction. A good example that we had, we're on a lift ticket, you know, for skiing page, and for a company in New Zealand. But a post that we got a lot of traction off, it was like, what's the weather like in August in New Zealand? You know, so like, it's, I don't know, you know, like, so people who are interested in skiing, like, are you skiing there in August? Like, is that the time to go? But so like, that's not a lift ticket direct question, but it's something that people are asking when they're doing those searches about buying like season passes for skiing. And so that you can see how it's not something necessarily you want on your page where you're selling the tickets, but it's the kind of thing that'd be awesome. Like, you know, great content that people are actually looking for that are related to it.
Got it. I mean, so even with those, I mean, you also talk about like how, you know, if you're trying to tell someone to get into SEO, or like how to do SEO, you say like 70% is basically, you know, the title, the keyword in the URL, H1, and within the body, right? I mean,
yeah, don't overthink it.
Yeah,
like,
don't overthink it.
If that's the term you want, get it on the page.
See, and then with that, you've and with all the tests that you've done, and just being with that concept too, is like, it's something where I want to talk about next is Page Optimizer Pro. You're a co-founder. I mean, I've been using it when it was still on the HV domain. I think you give us some credits when we signed up, but you know, it evolved to something that's a beast. And it's like I mentioned in my promo, like, it's something I use almost daily with my certain things. I've actually ranked some really, really, really competitive keywords for, you know, I'm an enterprise SEO. I don't want to mention which keywords they are, but I pretty much just took the brief, set it up for my content writer, and boom, like I swear to God, I'm going after companies like, oh, I don't want to mention the companies either, but I mean, these are big companies that I'm actually overtaking just by using Page Optimizer Pro. So I'm curious, like how, with all the tests, this is like firsthand data, right? So it's like, how are you finding these factors and these certain, are you just pretty much, you're using math, but how are you finding which ones to tweak and which ones and how much we should be tweaking?
Sure. So Page Optimizer Pro is the concept behind like rhinoplasty plano, where there are areas on the page that Google is looking, and then you need to put in, you know, your exact keyword, variations of it, and contextual terms a certain number of times in certain places. People often think that all you need to do is just jam your target phrase in, you know, rhinoplasty plano a million times on the page, and that's not true at all. You only need it on the page a handful of times in specific places. And then after that, it's variations of it, you know, splitting it apart. So talking about plano on its own, talking about rhinoplasty on its own, talking about a very close synonym of like a nose job, you know, getting your nose fixed, those types of things. Those are variations of the keyword. Those actually will do more of your heavy lifting. But how many times should you use those phrases, and where should you use them? That's what POP does. So it's taken the tests that I've done, and I continue to do, where you can pit factors against each other. You know, is an H1 stronger than image alt description? You know, which is stronger? And so running a whole bunch of series of tests of factor against factor, you can get a pretty good idea of what Google likes more, you know, likes the best versus likes a little bit, but it's not as strong. Mm-hmm. And then within each of those areas, we can go through, because the biggest concept is that the secret is hiding in plain sight. Google mm-hmm. shows you the sites that it likes, and it likes them for either their on page, their off page, or a combination of the two. And then you can start to isolate things. Okay, Google likes these pages. What are they all doing in their H1? What are they all doing in their body? What are they all doing for italic text, stuff like that? And then you can see which terms they're using where. And you can start to get a picture of, like, this is the type of page that Google will reward. POP, though, doesn't give you averages, and it doesn't give you like kind of like, this is the average for page one, do this. Because then there's another layer of math that goes on to POP, where we look for edges. You know, we look for places where, like, okay, we want to use this term specifically here, or we want to use it this many times specifically in this spot because we think you can get an edge. So it's not just this is an overview of the sites on page one, but this is what we think you can do right now to get an edge on your competitors, so you can write a page that Google not only likes, but will like more than what your competitors have. And it doesn't always come down to just like adding extra. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not an arms race in the sense of he or she who does it more wins. That's not quite how it goes. It's much more strategic than that. And so that's where POP comes in to make those decisions, or to help you make those decisions on, let's use this term in these places this many times, but this term over here this many times. And that's then where a lot of the POP's magic comes in, is in that algorithm that we built to find those edges.
And it's not just about adding to, because you can subtract it, because you have a part of the tool where you can subtract. Hey, you're overusing this keyword now. Now I think you should, like, you know, remove it. So I think that's what's cool about the tool. And again, this is stuff that you've tested and you just implement. So it's like kind of firsthand type of knowledge, right? This is like what you've done.
Oh, yeah. So these are all the tests we run, and then also with an IMG, mm-hmm. A lot of people that come in to do some of their first tests are these legacy tests. And what's great is we get to see if anything's changed, you know, because people are always like, how do you stay on top of Google? You know? Well, we test. But what's interesting is the core stuff within Google doesn't change. And I don't think that it can change. If you look at a bell curve, Google goes after that stuff like on the 10% or 15% on the extremes. You know, they're going after people that are trying to game it. But the stuff that's in the middle is primarily evergreen. And I think it'd be cost prohibitive for Google to change it, because it's so core to what the search engine is doing. They really can't change that middle part. And so the places that we're playing, the signals that we're looking at, by and large, won't change. You know, the part that does change is that things do tweak keyword to keyword. That's where like kind of big brand on-page evaluators, they can't show you these edges because there is some risk involved, you know, when you make changes, especially if you want to go into advanced strategies and look at reducing That can bring you some of the biggest gains, but that can also bring you some of the biggest losses. And that's where you, if you're doing that, if you're going into advanced strategies, you need to be comfortable in making those decisions. You are obviously an SEO pro, and if you're saying that you've reduced and gotten results, that's because you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
For most people, though, you don't have to worry about that at all. Pop has it kind of dialed down where you can just do this, and you're in a situation where you're not going to harm your page, and you have an excellent chance of creating a page that Google will really, really like. But
speaking of, with that, like you were talking about IMG, and which brings me to like another topic I would like to talk about. I mean, great community, great testers. I mean, I was at first like I was testing stuff on my own, but it does take time, right? And it takes, if you can be a full-time SEO, you can do side gigs or whatever it is, but then testing adds some time to like certain that. So it's like when you can find a bunch of testers who are willing to test these certain things that you trust, I think it's a great thing to have and like a community to be a part of. I mean, so what I mean, how did you come about creating that? Was IMG? I mean, I know obviously there's another testing group that you're a part of actually, and then IMG came about. But I mean, were you guys the only ones around at first? I mean, because I didn't remember seeing any testing groups around before anything that you were involved in. You were pretty much involved in.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't aware of anything that's like these types of groups now that you can get into and see the testing. The one thing that we're doing in IMG, which I'm very proud of, is the peer review aspect of it. The one thing about testing, as you just identified, it takes forever to run a test. And I can only run so many tests personally, especially if I really, when you're trying to get it as dialed in as possible, it takes a lot of time and effort. I can only run so many. But if you have a community of people that are trying to do things under the same standards, now we can amplify the amount of knowledge that we can get. One other part of that too is that what I'm interested in, you might not be interested in at all. And so you're going to be interested in running tests about things just in a completely different area that I'm even thinking about. That's what's really great about the community, because we have people bringing in these tests on things that I would never have taken the time. Like, oh, wow, that's not on my radar. But it is on their radar because, they're for the company that they're working for, or their clients, or, the affiliate sites that they're working on, whatever their kind of background is, they're presented with problems. And then the tests allow to find the solution to that problem. But the other layer that I really like about IMG is within the peer review. So we don't just toss these tests up and say, I did this one time and here's what it is, so that's clearly what's going on. If a test is done one time, we can talk about it within the framework of this is just a one-off, let's take it for that, but then also let's evaluate what we actually tested here. Was anything really tested? Were there other things that could complicate this, or where should we go from here? So the peer review aspect of IMG does not exist anywhere else. We don't make any wild claims of having monopoly on the science of it or the results or anything like that. What we talk about is just exactly what it is. This is the test that was run. This was how it was set up. These were problems that came up. These are things that might have caused this or that. And then then how you can apply it, what you can do with it from there. And that aspect of it, that the whole peer review of a community of people that are dedicated to doing these types of tests doesn't exist anywhere else.
I mean, one thing that doesn't exist anywhere else is the hardcore SEOs in the community of IMG. I mean, that's something just so valuable, just being around, and where I feel like, you're talking about Socrates, asking questions and learning by, asking questions, and other teaching by asking questions. It's a group where you can ask a question and get an answer from someone that's actually really knowledgeable on it. Like, it's someone that, you could respect, and you can have that. They have a track record. I mean, you even have Ted in there who actually has historical data. I mean, it's something that I feel like it's a valuable tool, like a valuable community where, people should always be involved, and it's also free, right? I mean, I think there's a free version of IMG.
Yeah, there's a whole free section. If you want access to the test, that's in the membership area. But there's a whole free section to it too, where you can plug in. There are like 3,000 people in that area now.
Wow. Yeah. See, I try to go into all parts of areas, but there's 3,000 members out in there. That's SEOs.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the thing about it too is people don't. It's easy to be like, why don't you just test it? Like when somebody asks a question, but we try to avoid that. We try to. But the other thing we try to avoid too within the community is fostering. Any question is fine to ask from you don't have to be technical. You don't have to be an advanced SEO to be in. You can be brand new to it. The thing that we do try to encourage people to do is look for the answer. So instead of saying like, is this a factor? It's a better way to say like, hey, I read this and it said that this is, but then I read this over here and it said that it wasn't. What do you guys think about this? So the idea is that you've actually done some research into it. You've looked into it. But then once you kind of have that foundation of, hey, this is what I know, once you've shared what you know, whatever it might be, people are much more willing to share and give after that. So that's what I think is kind of nice about the community, is that people have the idea of like, I'm going to try to figure this out. I'm going to get as far as I can. And then once you're at that point, then that's where the community can come in and really help you from there. And just, here, this is what I know. What do you know? And then it's a real nice give and take of knowledge at that point. Yeah,
I mean, it's totally valuable, like the whole peer and just being able to interact with other, people just that love SEO. Because I mean, again, it's actually, like from what I've been researching, I mean, why I'm even doing this show is to help other digital marketers get into SEO and feel like, it's a growing, especially being digital first SEO. Like I think Microsoft put it out there, like it's one of the #1 skills to have for the next 10 years, which is totally awesome because I mean, hey, we're in it right now. And
the job continues.
Yeah, we're set for the next at least 10 years, and we have at least another 20 years on top of the game, and it's totally cool. And the one thing I want to ask you is like, okay, so if someone else like wants to like get into SEO, like what would be that one thing you would tell this person who wants to get into SEO? Like what's that one, how to become like an SEO professional, just get into industry?
You have to have a site that you're working on. Thinking about SEO, worrying about SEO, neither of those things are doing SEO. It's a whole other thing to actually sit down and do it. I would recommend doing like if you're not, just do a small site on something that you're kind of interested in, and put it up. And you don't have to monetize it. It could just be a little passion project, but just getting a few pages up into Google where you're actually targeting something, you're trying to move the needle in one way or another for different KPIs, get more traffic, get more impressions, get more keywords. Those are excellent KPIs, key performance indicators, for a page. Throw one up and see if you can move the needle. So throw a page up somewhere and see if you can actually do something, because going from like, I know what this is to I've done it, that's a huge step. And that's where I think if you're interested in getting into the industry, you should try that out. See if you like it, because it is pretty tedious sometimes. Like all the little things you have to do to get a page to go, and all the different things involved. And it sounds so simple. It's so deceptively simple. It's like, oh, I'll just throw up a web page. But then like, I had to build a web page. I haven't built a web page in years, by the way. And I opened up WordPress and I was like, I'll just throw up a page. And I honestly had no idea how to do it. I was looking at this like page builder and I was like, when did this happen? And but even just that, even just putting up a web page, I understand. Like I told, just throw up a page, but to actually go and do it is a whole other thing. What's involved in creating that, just a basic page on the web. So do it would be the thing. Do it. Try it. Yeah, just do it. And then one other thing I would say is, you'll never be in a position where it's like, okay, I can quit my job. I'm comfortable now. You'll never be there. If you're trying to get to a point where like you can say like, okay, if I just get to here, then I can quit my job. Here you'll never get there, because it'll always continue to creep up. You'll always seek that thing that is comfortable. If it's something that's really you want to do, you have to at some point just jump in and go. You can't, it's not like a swap where it's like, okay, as soon as I get to this level with this, then I can let that, that'll never happen. So if it's something like you really want to do, I would first try it out, make sure you can do something with it. And then once you're there, then you kind of have to jump in and go.
No, I totally feel that. I mean, even like as much as long as I've been on it, it's like, it's one of those things like, okay, it made me go a little further, maybe psychological, but I mean, but yeah, like, whether or not to, like, you can always do more, or whether to leave something you have going well. I mean, I know some people that actually took it full time from leaving a 9 to 5 and stuff like that. But I mean, again, like if that's something that's totally real, I totally feel that. I mean, if there's anyone out there in the chat that has any questions, go ahead and ask them. Hey, Brad, I see you out there. But Kyle, I mean, how can people get a hold of you? How can they get your course? I mean, we didn't actually, let's talk about your course. I mean, your course is something that I actually recommend to anyone that's getting to SEO, because they go, hey, how do I want to get SEO? And I go, well, there's off page, there's on page, there's technical. And you know what? You don't really have to worry about off page and technical, because it starts with content first, and you provide content optimization, right? On page optimization and how you can get things done. So it's like, how can someone get a hold of your course, and tell them about your course.
Well, they can get it over in IMG, and that's also where they can get a hold of me as well. Mm-hmm. That's always a good place to go. Internetmarketing.gold, and just sign on up. So the course I put together, it's an on-page course, and it's meant to be for somebody that knows absolutely, well, not like beginner, but like kind of just starting off in SEO versus all the way up to advanced level, where wherever you are on your journey, I think you can plug in at some point in the course and really get something out of it. The course is also, though, it's not a course where it's like, it's not an over the shoulder, I'm not showing how to do something, but it's more building a framework of, the issues that you face in your job as an in-house SEO for a very large corporation are very different from somebody that's trying to launch, an affiliate site, to somebody that wants to launch a blog, somebody's trying to get a local plumber site up and running. So what I tried to put together was like, it doesn't matter where you are, but this is the framework to evaluate your situation. And then you can take these principles and you can apply them in all of those scenarios, just understanding, trying to understand the situation where how things change within those different situations, and then you can apply something and be successful in all of them. So it's definitely more of I was shooting for like a mindset, a very practical mindset, obviously, but it isn't just a do this, do that, and then you're good to go. It's more like, this is how you can think about it, and then these are the things you can then plug in and go. These are the techniques within that framework, and you just can then apply what's most relevant to your particular situation.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Sometimes I think that people understand certain things, but yeah, you have to know a little about certain things before you can do like optimization, right? I mean, and you can't just assume when someone's just starting out. But I mean, hey, Kyle is the god of SEO. Jeremy Grove says, "What's up? Do you see? You know him? You're the god." Thumbs up. Anyone else out there have any questions for our man Kyle? Let us know. Again, Kyle, thank you for everything. You are like the godfather of the SEO video show. You were there when it was in its conception. You and Anita, right? Like she was the godmother then. I mean, you guys were there. Thank you. I don't see any other questions coming in, but other than that, I will see you in SEO Fight Club. And
I'll see you in IMG.
I'll see you in IMG. Everyone, don't forget to check out internetmarketing.gold. He's also co-host of SEO Fight Club, something where I always grab clips from every week. Check it out and check out his course and Page Optimizer Pro. It's my secret weapon. It's something I don't really, it's one of those things. It's kind of funny when you say you don't share certain things and you don't want to share because you don't want, you want to give your competition the edge, but hey, you still need to learn how to use it. You still need to, and at the same time, it's like, will they take action? Like you're talking about, like, will other people take action on actually just doing it? Because hey, it's there, but it's about taking action. So Kyle, can you please go ahead and just stand by real quick before I sign off?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. All right, let's see here. So that concludes our episode for today. I will see you next week. I do actually have, I want to end off with something that's from one of Kyle's presentations. It's something where this show is actually based off of. Let's listen in from this last quote.
If you study history, if you study math and science and philosophy throughout history, you can actually do this as a common trend. You'll see that people take a very simple idea and they apply it in a profound way. Socrates says, I don't know what I don't know, and that's quite simple. Of course you don't. But he said, I can learn by asking questions, and I can also teach by asking questions. And he applies that, and it turns into the Socratic method. Fast forward about another 100 years, and you're sitting at a conference in Chiang Mai with a guy named Kyyyyyle Rooooooooof who says, Google's algorithm is an algorithm.
Thank you for watching. Hope you come back next week. Make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss a thing. Hope you learn something new, cause the vibe is incredible. From the special SEO professionals, SEO video show, let's work. Want to see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre De Vera helping you step it up. No delay right now. Time to level up. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Woo!